All right, guys, welcome back to Wide Awake News Radio. Charlie McGrath on the, what is it, the 5th day? Wow, these months are just ticking by. 5th day of February, Tuesday. And joining us here in just a minute is Phil Restino. First time he's been on the program, but he's worked with Karen before. He's worked with Gary before. I'm excited to get him on and talk to him. An activist for ending these insane wars. In fact, the website that he wants us to direct folks to is veteransforpeace.org. Even though I'm not a member of this organization, I certainly am one. I'm a veteran, and I'm demanding peace, and at least I'm demanding the ending of a bunch of illegal wars in my name. And with the first hour talking about the ability now of government to not only go ahead and commit what I deem to be murder of American citizens without any due process whatsoever, murder of children without any due process, American children without any due process whatsoever. We are being sold that it is all for our own good and our own safety. When what's happening around the world, from my position, my point of view, and Phil might agree with me, is the fomenting of hatred towards the United States. Now, ask yourself a real simple question. What would you do? What would you do if you were anywhere in the Middle East or North Africa and you've been a victim of conquest over the last decade, either in Afghanistan, Iraq, inside of Libya, inside of anywhere that the U.S. is operating above board and below board, where you have drones coming around shooting $60,000 Hellfire missiles to the tune of we don't even know how many a day, people dying. Scores and scores of children are dying every month in prosecuting an alleged war on terror. What would be your sentiment towards the nation that was propagating this butchery towards you? What would be your sentiment? If think about this. If you're sitting down to dinner tonight, or you're sitting down to breakfast in the morning, and all of a sudden a house blows up down the road, and 15 people are killed. And the reports coming out on CNN and Fox News and all the other major media that's controlled by a handful of individuals tells you that it was a successful drone strike because it took out some leader of some sect, of some group, of some entity that wants to come over to the United States and steal your rights. We're still fighting a war for over a dozen years in Afghanistan, and we still have no concept of what victory looks like. We still have no concept of when we're getting out of there. We've seen the absolute dismantling of freedom in this nation. You don't have to say the Constitution. You don't have to say the Bill of Rights. You don't have to say the law. It's a complete dismantling of freedom, all in the name of safety, protecting us from the terror-loving terrorists. It is beyond out of control. You know it's beyond the point of no return when your government can butcher a Denver native, as our great caller from Canada pointed out, a Denver, Colorado native, 16 years old, butcher him, and then issue a statement saying, not only is it legal, it's ethical and it's wise. Ladies and gentlemen, the point of no return has been passed. Decisions are going to have to be made in the near future, I believe. It's going to be, are you going to bow down and are you going to lick the boot heel? Or are you going to stand up and demand justice from the people that are butchering in our name? All right, let's bring our guest on. Phil Restino, thank you very much for joining me tonight. I appreciate you coming on here. I appreciate your efforts to try to end this insanity.
Well, thank you, Charlie. I'm happy to be on the program. And I've watched your brief reports that you do. I catch those on the Rents website, and I always enjoy them. But yeah, we've you just laid it all out, man. When are we gonna speak up and rise up? And we have passed a resolution in Veterans for Peace. We're a national organization of military veterans.
Yeah, go ahead, and I should have asked you this from the get-go. But for those who haven't heard of Veterans for Peace, tell us about this organization and where you're at and your chapter,
Sure.
and you know your motivations, which I think are pretty obvious. But go ahead and Spill your beans.
It's a anti-war veterans organization. The whole point is to put an end to war, you know. And if folks go to veteransforpeace.org, they'll be able to see, you know, what the mission statement is, statement of purpose, and all that. And it's basically to put an end to war. There's a 5-point statement of purpose. I found that it's been around since 1985. There's chapters across the country, over 120 chapters, I believe. And I learned about it in 2005 when the Downing Street memo came out. Your listeners, I imagine a number of your listeners know what that was, but just in case, May 1st of 2005, it was released in the newspapers that, you know, there was a memo from the Tony Blair's cabinet there that showed that the Bush administration, high people in his administration, met with the same their counterparts in the Blair administration in July of 2002, and knew there were no weapons of mass destruction, but had decided that that was what they were going to tell their respective peoples for the next half a year plus, and say that, you know, build up this threat of weapons of mass destruction to get the people to get behind an attack on Iraq. So this came out in 2005 as smoking gun proof, pretty much. And I found out about that on the internet, and there was a hearing that John Conyers of the Judiciary Committee held. And they call it the basement hearing because the majority of the Congress there, the majority leaders wouldn't let them have a room to have the hearing in, so they had to go in the basement, and Cindy Sheehan and Ray McGovern, John Boniface, and some others, Colonel Ann Wright, who's a member of Veterans for Peace, so is former CIA veteran Ray McGovern. They testified. All these members of Congress were coming in and out because they scheduled a whole bunch of votes to disrupt it as well. And I thought, wow, this is great. This is the end of the war. You know, this should put an end to it. And afterwards, I'm watching this on the internet, and I see this rally, and it's the Code Pink people and the Veterans for Peace. And this fellow Mike Ferner gets up, representing Veterans for Peace, and starts saying that, you know, not only is it our responsibility as citizens, but it's our duty as veterans to impeach this criminal president. And I thought, man, these guys, who are these guys? They're military veterans, and they're standing up, and they're actually calling for the removal from office of this criminal president. And I said,
again, this is under George Bush, right?
Under George Bush in 2005, yeah. Iraq was about 2 years old then, you know, and I said, man, I want to find out about these Veterans for Peace. Now, I'm a peacetime veteran. I served after Vietnam. I was 2 years in the Army. Peacetime, you know, I was never in a war or anything. So when I phoned them up, they said, no, as long as you served in the military, whether anytime, anywhere, you're welcome to join. And there's a number of war veterans in Veterans for Peace as well. But I just wanted to make clear I'm a peacetime veteran, and I joined up in 2005, and Veterans for Peace really was very active in calling for impeachment. And
Phil, hold on one sec. We're going to come back. And
okay,
you know, I regardless if you're a peacetime veteran, wartime veteran, if you're an American, you know, you need to realize that all this is being done in our name, and people are dying in our name on both sides. We're going to be back with Phil Restino, more What I Like News Radio in just a minute. Hang tight. All right, guys, welcome back to Wide Awake News Radio. I am joined by Phil Restino. We were continuing the conversation about our service during the break, and I was explaining. He had asked me during the break, did I get to come home right after the Gulf War? And I'm going to answer that question now, which was, it seemed like an eternity after the shooting, after the ground war began. Now, I was with the 2nd Armored Cavalry Regiment, and we were in Iraq when it all came to a close. I think it was Phil. I think it was about a month after that I got to go home. It seemed like forever. It seemed like eternity because I just wanted to get the hell out of there. I can imagine. Yeah, it was a complete and utter sandbox, and that's horrible enough. Just a story in of its own. The people that I served with never even heard of Iraq. When we signed up, I went in '88. I do remember going through some of my training. I had an instructor tell an audience of new recruits that everybody sitting in this room right now is going to be involved in a military conflict or war, same thing, before their term in service is over. Now, this is 1988, and we had years and years of relative peace with a few little skirmishes here and there. So we all thought he was crazy, but his words rang true, and the majority of us that were in that room ended up in 7th Corps in Germany, and we were the first units deployed out of Germany to the sandbox. The disgusting part for me, Phil, is we're sitting here at 2013, right? We're talking, this war is in 1991. We're talking decades later, and yet we are still there. We're still there for reasons that are not what we're being sold. Go ahead.
Right. And, well, war is a racket, as Marine Major General Smedley Butler pointed out many years ago. There's a read. You could read the whole 65-page book right online. War is a racket. And
there's no doubt about it. In fact, my dad sent me that book, and I've read it, and it's 100% accurate. I said last night on the program, and I've said before in videos and whatnot, that it was Eisenhower who warned the people in this country, and when he was leaving the office of presidency, this is the architect of the invasion of Europe. He warned the American people. The same thing Smedley Butler tried to warn us about, that it's all about making money. It's all about enriching somebody, and they use the lives of innocents in order to accomplish this.
Well, the people have a remedy, Charlie, and we're not using it. And that is impeachment. And the anti-war folks really made a strong case for it during the Bush years, Bush and Cheney. And I mean, they really made a case for it, And but it was it was the left going after the Republican right. And I really believe the biggest threat to this country's security and freedoms is our own stubborn political partisanship. And I really believe that is the biggest threat, is our own self. We have a remedy here, and I know this is a short segment, but getting back to the war you were in, Charlie, that ended 28 February 1991 due to a presidential order of a ceasefire, complete ceasefire, on 28 February 1991 by George H.W. Bush. And in his memoirs, 1998, he wrote a book, The World Transformed, and he admitted in that book that the reason why he didn't go further into Iraq and overthrow Iraq's regime was because he feared impeachment. The UN mandate, whatever, was to kick the Iraqis out of Kuwait, and y'all did that. And Representative Henry Gonzalez of Texas, with the help of international law professor Francis Boyle, drafted articles of impeachment. And those articles of impeachment were waiting for Papa Bush if he was going to go further into Iraq. And that's why he called the ceasefire. He admitted it himself in his own memoirs.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as impeachment stopping a war, we have recent history of it right there. And the anti-war people here, which I've been a part of, the earlier segment, I told you how I came to join Veterans for Peace. Those folks who are adamantly calling for impeachment, waving the Constitution in the air, it's
hold on a minute, Phil. Hold on a minute.
Sorry.
We got interrupted by this short break, but I want to get into that on the backside, because here's the deal. I couldn't agree with you more. We are our own worst enemy, buying into the divide and conquer rhetoric, and it's okay to go after the red team, but not the blue team. We're going to get into that and a whole bunch more on the backside of this break with Phil Restino. Hang tight. All right, welcome back to Wide Awake News Radio. Charlie McGrath, joined by Phil Restino. We're continuing to talk about stopping the insanity. I know that sounds kind of cliche, but man, it truly is insanity. Veteransforpeace.org is the website he wants us to push. And first of all, before I go on, I want to say, the two calls we had tonight were both outstanding, and I want to thank Meat Dog and our friend in Canada for calling in. It is on this topic, and I want to make sure you guys know that I appreciate you calling in and participating. We need everybody who's listening to do what they can do, and if it's calling into different programs, if it's sending videos or pamphlets or whatever to their friends and family to show a little bit of reality mixed in with all the lies and propagandas. I mean, how far along can it get before we have to have a mass awakening to the circumstances we're in? I'm sitting here doing this interview in hour number one, now hour number two with Phil, and posted right in front of me underneath the webcam is the drone strike on U.S. citizen terror suspects, legal, ethical wise, and this comes from our very own White House. And I read this statement, and it's just it boggles my mind. As Phil and I are talking about, our military service and things that we were pushed into war for back in my day, and the same things in the same region for different lies we're being pushed into for now. It is time for this awakening to happen. It's past time for this awakening to happen. Phil, we were talking before the break a little bit. By the way, again, let me mention, veteransforpeace.org. Please go there and bookmark that site. Check it out. We were talking before the break about the biggest culprit, the biggest battle that we're facing right now is this notion of ideology. This notion of I'm a Republican, or I'm a neocon, or I'm a liberal, I'm a Democrat. And, this is used as shackles to keep us at each other's throat, rather than looking at the people that brought us here being exactly the same. Doesn't matter if you're pro-Obama, or you're pro-Bush, or you're Democrat, or you're Republican, or you're liberal, conservative. They don't care. Do you need a bigger statement than it's okay to kill U.S. citizens? It's not only okay, it's ethical and wise. They do not care about the people of this nation. If they did, they wouldn't be killing us. I mean, we need to recognize and realize there is no blue, there is no red, there is them, the power junkie control elite, and the rest of us who are kowtowing and begging for safety. We're not going to get it. We're going to get more and more tyrannical rule. But you're 100% right, Phil. This division game is a massive, massive problem. When you have, go ahead.
Yes, it is, Charlie, and it's on us to change that. And those of us who recognize it have to be the example for others to follow. There's a lot of us, more and more people are waking up. As you mentioned earlier, the awakening, yes, that's going all well and good, but action, that's where we're lacking. We have a remedy, It's impeachment. It's the people's remedy. And we're still not using it. All these people that called for Bush's impeachment, that got up in front of the microphones and made the case, waving the Constitution in the air, citing all the laws violated,
Right.
Chris Hedges, Code Pink, Mike Ferner of Veterans for Peace, the fellow who made that fiery speech that got me to take notice and join up with them. All these folks need to be put on the spot and called on it. And actually, there's a new video out by the Corbett Report, James Corbett, who I believe you had on recently on your program.
Yep.
He calls it Calling Out the Hypocritical War-Loving Left. It's a 15-minute video report. I encourage everybody to go to it. Veterans for Peace, the rank and file, we finally got the resolution to impeach Obama for war crimes, the same war crimes we cited in the resolution to call for impeaching Bush. We got that passed at the summer 2011 National Convention, yet nobody knows about it because the national leadership has suppressed it, has kept the lid on it. And this fella, Mike Ferner, if you go to the YouTube and you type in his name and impeachment rally June 16, 2005, it'll show him, waving this letter that they sent to Congress, calling for Congress to immediately begin impeachment proceedings. Well, after this one with Obama passed, our chapter was the sponsoring chapter 3 years in a row before we finally got it passed. They were supposed to issue a similar letter to Congress, and Mike Ferner was in charge at the time, executive director, and it took us 17 months. Only just a few weeks ago did I finally get a copy from the national office. They would not make it available. It's interesting. The 17 months, most of those were before the November elections between a Democrat and Republican. And it turned out there was no letter. It was just a one-sentence fax cover page along with the resolution itself, and this is what we got here. We've got to call out these people, and I'm so glad James Corbett did this report. I encourage everyone to type it in, calling out the hypocritical war-loving left. So, but not only should we be calling on the left to apply the same standard, but those of us who are not on the left or whatever, I just don't belong to any side or party or anything. I've reclaimed my own identity. I'm Phil. That's it.
Phil party.
Yeah, and thinking for myself. But all of us who know this need to call for impeachment. And there is a resolution in place. It's veteransforpeace.org. You can get the phone number there. And the resolution was passed. And folks can call them up, call the national office, and say, hey, what's going on with this? Let's see the resolution, which members of Congress are behind it, and get it going. And I tell you what, Charlie, if the left is forced to apply the same standard of a public call for impeachment for the Democrat, there is nowhere to pass the political football. You take the partisanship out of impeachment, and the people actually have a chance to get the remedy back in their hands. And we can put an end to these wars. And right now, Congressman Walter Jones has HCR 3, which threatens impeachment should the president once again start another war, which he's already done. He's in Africa now. He's going into bombing different countries. He's in Mali. Ron Paul said that's an act of war right there. And nobody knows about it because the anti-war people this was out in March of 2012. Now, mind you, that was an election year, and you don't want any of these guys. The anti-war movement had a mechanism to actually stop this warmongering president from launching any more wars, and they kept it quiet. They wouldn't let people know about it. These are the anti-war people. They put themselves out publicly as people trying to stop the wars.
And they're not. And they're absolutely not. You know, it's controlling the opposition. We're going to be back with Phil Restino, more Wide Awake News Radio. Final segment coming up. Hang tight. Guys, welcome back to Wide Awake News Radio. Final segment tonight on the 5th of February. Tuesday. Phil Restino, I want to thank you very much for coming on. And before we run out of time, because we probably will, veteransforpeace.org is the organization you're affiliated with. And I want to thank you and your crew down there for what you're doing and to keep up the fight. It is beyond frustrating, you know, some of the things that we were talking about. Even inside this organization, you know, that it's suddenly okay to turn a blind eye to this insanity just because, you know, the blue team's up to bat. You know, I do remember when George W. Bush was president. I do remember Code Pink being all over the mainstream media. I do remember, you know, this opposition to the current party was out there loud and clear, and they've vanished. They've vanished since Obama's been elected.
Yes, and but they still will do the token opposition, you know, and when you question them on their hypocrisy, they come out and say, no, we still oppose what Obama's doing, and they'll issue statements, they'll have their protests, they'll have a march on Washington, you know, if they can get anybody to go, and they have all these things to keep the rank and file thinking that they're getting there, and they're trying to stop the war machine, you know. But what they have not done is applied the same standard of a public call for impeachment. That is what they have not done, and every time that they're asked about it, they'll say, well, it didn't work for Bush, it's not going to work for Obama, or, you know, we have to be strategic, or, you know, bullshit, man. They don't want to do it.
Right.
We don't want to put the resources into it because they know once the left calls for impeaching the Democrat for the same crime cited in their call for impeaching the Republican, there's nowhere to pass the political football. You have to deal with the issue. Impeachment now is relevant to illegal wars. And they're also afraid of all these other people that just want Obama or the Democrat out for whatever reason will jump on the bandwagon. And there you go. They're putting their own political party concerns above their statement of purpose and actually stopping the slaughter, you know. And but it's time for action, and that's of all of us who know, you know, anyone listening to us talk tonight, Charlie, now knows. And tag, you're it. It's like when you become witness to a crime, you know, whether you wanted to or not, you know now you're responsible in one way or another. And if you don't speak up and come forward, you got a hand in that crime. And so there is a resolution. Veterans for Peace has a resolution that's a year and a half old calling for impeachment of Obama for the same war crimes cited in their call for impeaching Bush. There's also a resolution right now that needs co-sponsors. Congressman Walter Jones of North Carolina, in the past session, he introduced it as H-Con Res 107, but now it's out as H-Con Res 3, and it threatens impeachment should the president again launch a war or military action without proper approval from Congress. And I tell you what, Charlie, I don't know of any statements of opposition or any protests on Washington that have stopped the war, but I can cite when a threat of impeachment did, and that's in 1991, and it forced George H.W. Bush to order a ceasefire. He admitted it in his own memoirs because Congressman Henry Gonzalez of Texas had articles of impeachment waiting for him. Mm-hmm. So a threat of impeachment has stopped a war.
Yeah, and you know what? And the only way that the threat of impeachment can work is if there's, yeah, that's right. If there's truly a legitimate threat to the powers that be, the only way that can happen is through people understanding this cause, and understanding is not Democrat or Republican. It's all of us. Understanding,
and we all have to make the call, and that's my point. You know, we have a lot of people that have stepped out of the left-right paradigm, or who have come from the right, let's say, you know, and are more conservative in over certain issues or what have you, and the anti-war group is mostly left-leaning. Veterans for Peace certainly is. But I have stayed in Veterans for Peace. People ask, especially some of these leaders, the people in the leadership positions, who I'm a royal pain in the ass to, say, why don't you quit like so many of your chapter has? And I said, no, I believe in the statement of purpose. I believe in that speech that Mike Ferner gave that day, June 16, 2005. I believe it is our responsibility as citizens and our duty as veterans to call for impeachment when we have a president that's criminally prosecuting illegal wars of aggression. That's our responsibility. I truly believe. Have you
ever had the chance or the opportunity or the desire? I'm sure you've had the desire to call out somebody. And I probably shouldn't even go here because I want to keep the message about anti-war. Period. But it's got to be frustrating for you to have people in the national organization who are turning a blind eye because of their political ideology. And, I mean, have you ever questioned, hey, what on earth are you thinking about? Why aren't we prosecuting this president, or at least trying to get these articles of impeachment rolling with this president as we did under the last? And what are their answers to that?
Well, their answer was, what do you want? You want the Republicans to get in? And that just goes to show you that's where they're coming from. And yes, I've been battling with Veterans for Peace from within since 2009, since we took up the impeachment issue right away, because the third day in office, Obama sent drones into Pakistan. And that's when one of our members, Tom Santoni, wrote an article, Impeach Obama. And that's when we should have called for it. In our chapter, we went through the process of debating it, and this is all during Obama's honeymoon. You know, the first black president and all that, and you can't say anything bad about him. Well, we had to take on that issue because of Tom writing that article, and we introduced the resolution at the 209 convention, and I was figuratively, I felt like I was being run out of town. You know, they didn't want to hear it. And then 2010, we got a little closer. Cindy Sheehan got behind the resolution, and other notables, Professor Francis Boyle, John Splitting the Sky Boncourt, the Native American who got arrested in Canada for trying to arrest George Bush in March of 2009. Some notable people, Adam Kokesh of Iraq Vets Against the War, got behind it, and people started to listen more, but it didn't pass. And it wasn't until 2011, and Cynthia McKinney got behind our resolution the day Obama bombed Libya, which March 19th will be the 2-year anniversary of Obama on his own bombing Libya without even bothering to go to Congress to lie like Bush did. He didn't bother to do that.
Yeah. So what we see...
We have to call for it. I'm sorry, Charlie. Go ahead.
No, you're 100%. We do have to call. We have to demand it. You know,
all of us have to call for it. And right now, Walter Jones is hanging out there. He's putting this resolution, HCON Res 3. And please, folks, everybody listening, call your congressman and tell them to get behind HCON Res 3. And Walter Jones is a Republican, you know, so there you go with the anti-war people. Can't associate with him, even if it means stopping a war, you know. So those of us that know better need to be examples. We need to lead by example, and because no one's leading right now. Walter Jones is, but he's hanging out there all alone. So now the listeners know about this, and there's no excuse now. Get on the phone tomorrow, call for impeachment. Anyone wants yard signs, I got them. You know, hit me up with an email or whatever, and we have yard signs. War crimes are war crimes. Prosecute Bush, impeach Obama. You know.
Yeah, I love that slogan. No doubt about it.
Yeah.
VeteransForPeace.org. This is where you want people to go to check out.
And please get their phone number and call them. You can look up who the local contacts are. There's chapters all over the country. You know, so I'm asking the listeners, Charlie, to do that. To actually go there, look up your local contact. Also call the central office in St. Louis and say, what's going on with this impeach Obama resolution? You know, why aren't you guys doing anything with it? And make them live up to their purpose. You know.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it, because it's not like it's abating, right? It's getting worse. It's getting far more worse. You know, like you said, Obama comes in and he's launching wars without even bother informing Congress of the fact. And now you talk about Mali, we talk about the expansion of the drone strikes in other nations and on American citizens. Guys, it is as real as it could possibly get.
It's time for us to act, though, Charlie.
Yes, I agree. I agree 100%.
You know, we've discussed it, and I'm sorry for interrupting you.
No, that's all right. That's fine.
We've got to be. We're awake. Time to act. I had two links, if I could mention it, or are we all over?
Well, go ahead and get it out there.
Okay, I'd like you all to also go to Larry Pinckney's site, the blackactivistwg.org, and that stands for Black Activist Writers Guild.org. He's my radio partner, and
give us the. Hey, wait a minute, Phil. Give us this site again, real quick, okay?
It's blackactivistwg.org, Whiskey Gulf.
Blackactivistwg.org.
And Larry's been writing. He's been fighting from within in the black community. I've been fighting from within in the anti-war community. And look,
Phil,
go back to Mike Ferner's words. You're welcome, Charlie. Thank you for having me.
You bet,
Thank
Phil.
you so much.
Phil Restino, VeteransForPeace.org. I'm sorry we had to cut you off there. It's going to be an automatic thing here in about 10 seconds. Guys, enjoy Jeff Prince because he is coming up next. Have a good night. Peace.
Thank you, Charlie.